I still remember that night vividly, the night that shattered me, the night that ended my world as I knew it. Our 5th wedding anniversary. When I woke up that morning, I was full of hope. I had been preparing for weeks. I had picked out a special dress, ivory silk, embroidered with delicate golden threads. I wanted to look like the woman he once swore he couldn't live without. My hair was styled in 2 soft waves, my makeup simple but radiant. I wanted him to look at me and remember why he had chosen me 5 years ago. I told myself, maybe tonight he will come back to me. Maybe tonight he'll remember us. But deep inside, I already knew things weren't the same. The late nights, the unanswered calls, the faint traces of perfume on his suits that weren't mine, they all told a story I refused to face. Still, I smiled. Still, I prepared. Still, I prayed. The ballroom was decorated beautifully. Crystal chandeliers glittered above, casting golden light over the tables draped in white linen. A string quartet played softly in the corner. Guests laughed, clinking glasses, offering me their congratulations. I greeted them all, pretending to be the perfect wife, pretending not to notice that my husband, Adrian, was nowhere to be seen. Every passing minute without him felt like an eternity. "Where's Adrian?" someone asked, and I forced a laugh. "Oh, you know him. Always working too much. But he'll be here." I believed it. I had to believe it. And then he walked in. The entire room seemed to shift. Heads turned. The music faltered. Conversations paused. My breath caught in my throat. He wasn't alone. Adrian, my husband, the man I had sacrificed everything for, walked into our anniversary party with another woman on his arm. Her name was Jenny. I knew her. Everyone knew her. She wasn't just any woman. She was the one everyone whispered about behind my back. The one I tried so hard to convince myself was just a rumor. But there she was in a sparkling red dress, her hand entwined with his, her head resting against his shoulder as though she belonged there. I felt the ground disappear beneath me. The crowd erupted into whispers. Some gasped, others smirked, waiting for drama to unfold. I stood frozen, clutching my champagne glass so tightly that my hand trembled. My lips parted, but no words came out. And then he smiled. Adrian actually smiled, as if this were all perfectly normal, as if humiliating me in front of our families, our friends, our entire social circle was nothing at all. He raised his glass, looking directly at me across the room. "Everyone," he said, his voice calm, smooth, calculated. "Tonight, I want to celebrate not just my anniversary, but also the person who's truly been by my side." He pulled Jenny closer to him, kissed her cheek, and the crowd gasped. "This is Jenny," he announced. "The woman who understands me." The glass slipped from my fingers, shattered. Just like me, the sound of breaking crystal echoed in the ballroom. But it was nothing compared to the sound of my heart tearing apart. I wanted to scream. I wanted to rush up to him, claw at him, demand answers. But my body refused to move. My mind refused to believe what my eyes were seeing. I had given up everything for him. My youth, my career, my dreams. I had endured loneliness, excuses, coldness. I had convinced myself that it was all worth it because marriage required patience, sacrifice, forgiveness. But what about my forgiveness now? Wasn't my loyalty enough? Wasn't my love enough? Jenny smirked at me, her eyes glinting with victory. She whispered something in his ear, and he laughed softly, like he was in love with her, not me. I don't know how I managed to stand there, silent, as people stared at me with pity, some with amusement. My chest felt tight, my vision blurred. I wanted to disappear. But the worst was yet to come. Because Adrian, my husband, my betrayer, had the audacity to approach me. He walked across the room with Jenny still clinging to him and stopped right in front of me. His expression was calm, almost smug. "Darling," he said, voice dripping with mock sweetness, "you look lovely tonight. But you don't mind, do you?" He gestured at Jenny. "You've always been so generous. You can understand." Generous. That's what he called it. My humiliation, my betrayal, my shattered dignity. Generosity? The guests around us chuckled nervously. Some shook their heads, others leaned closer, hungry for scandal. I felt the tears sting my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. Not here. Not in front of him. Not in front of her. "Excuse me," I whispered, my voice barely audible. I turned and walked away, each step heavier than the last. Behind me, I heard laughter. His laughter. Her laughter. I stumbled into the empty corridor outside the ballroom. My knees buckled, and I collapsed against the wall, pressing a hand to my chest. My heart was beating wildly, painfully, as if it might burst. I couldn't breathe. I slid down to the floor, my gown pulling around me, tears finally streaming down my face. That was the moment I realized I was nothing to him. I was never anything more than a placeholder, a shadow, a name on paper. And as my sobs echoed in the cold, empty corridor, I thought to myself, this is the end. My story ends here. But fate had other plans. Because that night, the night of my greatest humiliation, was not the end of my story. It was the beginning. I don't know how long I stayed there, sobbing on the cold marble floor outside the ballroom. The sound of muffled laughter and clinking glasses seeped through the closed doors, reminding me that life went on inside, that the world was celebrating while I was crumbling. I wanted it all to stop. At some point, I stood up on shaky legs and wandered out into the night. The city lights blurred through my tears, neon signs flickering against the dark sky. My heels clicked against the pavement, uneven, desperate. I don't remember crossing the street. I don't remember the blinding headlights. I only remember the screech of tires, the gasps of strangers, the rush of wind, and then nothing. When I opened my eyes again, I expected to see a hospital ceiling, white walls, beeping machines, the sterile scent of antiseptic. But what I saw made my blood run cold. It was my old bedroom. Not the one I had shared with Adrian, decorated with his cold, minimal taste. No, this was the room I had lived in before marriage. Soft lavender curtains swayed gently by the window. My desk was cluttered with old notebooks, my favorite stuffed bear perched on the shelf. The air smelled faintly of jasmine, just as it had when I was 22. I sat up abruptly, my heart racing. My hands trembled as I touched the blanket. It was real. Too real. "No, this can't be," I whispered. I stumbled to the mirror across the room, and what I saw staring back at me nearly made me collapse. It was me, but younger. My skin smooth, untouched by stress. My eyes brighter, not yet dulled by years of disappointment. My hair longer, healthier. I reached up to touch my face, tears spilling down my cheeks. I'm back. The calendar on my desk confirmed it. The year, the date. I had been sent back 5 years before that fateful anniversary. Back before the marriage, before the betrayal. My knees gave way, and I sank to the floor, clutching my chest. The emotions hit me all at once. Shock, relief, fear. I had died. I knew it in my bones. And yet here I was, breathing, alive, given a second chance. I cried loud, unrestrained sobs of both grief and gratitude. Because fate, God, the universe, whatever power ruled above, had been merciful. It had given me another chance, but with that chance came a choice. I could repeat my past, make the same mistakes, walk the same path of pain and betrayal. Or I could change everything, and this time, I would not be the naive, forgiving fool. This time, I would not give my heart to Adrian. This time, I would choose myself. The next morning, my mother called me downstairs for breakfast. "Darling, come eat. Adrian's family is coming over later to discuss the engagement." My blood ran cold. Engagement. Of course. This was the time when both families had been pushing for it. When I, blinded by love and loyalty, had agreed without hesitation. But now, knowing what awaited me, how could I say yes? I dressed carefully, choosing a simple white blouse and skirt. My hands trembled as I buttoned it, but my resolve hardened. When I entered the dining room, my parents were already seated. My father looked proud, my mother radiant with excitement. And there they were, Adrian's parents, polished, polite, oozing arrogance, and Adrian himself. He was younger too, of course, handsome in his tailored suit, with that same confident smile that once made my heart flutter. But this time, when I looked at him, all I felt was disgust. His smile didn't charm me anymore. His words didn't stir me, because I knew. I had seen who he truly was. He leaned back in his chair, smirking at me as if he already owned me. "You look beautiful, as always," he said smoothly. "I can't wait for our life together." I forced a polite smile but said nothing. The discussion began. Families spoke of dates, venues, dowries, and alliances. Everyone seemed so eager to tie us together. And then my father turned to me. "What do you think, sweetheart? Shall we proceed with the engagement?" In my past life, I had said yes immediately. My heart had soared with foolish joy, but now I looked Adrian in the eye, remembering the way he had paraded Jenny in front of me, the way he had called my humiliation generosity. And I smiled. No, the room fell silent. Adrian blinked, caught off guard. "What did you say?" I sat up straighter, my voice steady. "I said no, I don't want this engagement." Gasps filled the room. My mother nearly dropped her fork. My father's brows furrowed. Adrian's mother stiffened, glaring at me as though I had insulted her bloodline. Adrian himself chuckled, shaking his head. "You're joking." "I'm not." His smirk faltered. "Darling, perhaps you're just nervous." "Don't worry, I'll take care of you." My heart hardened. "The same way you took care of me when you brought her to our anniversary." I said no, I repeated firmly. The tension in the room was suffocating. My mother reached out to grip my hand. "Think carefully, dear." "I already have," I interrupted. "And my answer won't change." Adrian's eyes darkened. For the first time, I saw a crack in his mask. He wasn't used to me standing up to him. He wasn't used to me saying no. "This is ridiculous," his mother snapped. "Do you know what you're throwing away?" "Yes," I said quietly. "I'm throwing away a lifetime of regret." Silence. Heavy. Shocking. Adrian leaned forward, his voice low. "You'll regret this." I met his gaze evenly. "No, you will." That night, alone in my room, I trembled from the confrontation. My family was upset, of course. My mother wept. My father scolded me. They couldn't understand. They thought I was being stubborn, reckless. But I didn't care. Because for the first time, I had taken control of my life. I sat by the window, staring at the moon. My heart was still heavy, my wounds from my past life still raw. But there was a spark in me now, a spark of hope, of determination. This time, I wouldn't let anyone define me. This time, I would rewrite my fate. And as I drifted to sleep, I whispered to myself, Adrian, Jenny, this time, you'll regret underestimating me. The days that followed were not easy. My refusal of the engagement shook my family to its core. Mother barely spoke to me, her eyes red from tears and disappointment. Father's voice was colder than I'd ever heard before, each word laced with disapproval. You're ruining your future, he scolded one evening, pacing the study as I sat silently in front of him. Do you know how many families would beg for this match? Adrian is wealthy, influential, respected. And you, what do you have? A degree you never used. A face that will fade with time. You'll regret this, daughter. In my past life, those words would have cut me deeply. I would have cried, begged, pleaded for their understanding. I would have tried to prove that marrying Adrian was the right choice, that I was worthy, but now I only smiled faintly. Father, I said softly, I'd rather regret being single than regret being chained to a man who will destroy me. He froze, shocked. He wasn't used to hearing me speak this way. In the past, I was the obedient daughter, always nodding, always agreeing. Not anymore. He shook his head and dismissed me with a wave of his hand, muttering about foolish youth. I left the room, my heart heavy but unbroken. For the first time, I had chosen myself. And though it meant standing alone, I would endure it. But rejecting Adrian didn't mean he was gone. No. Adrian was persistent. The very next day, he appeared outside my university gates, leaning against his sleek black car. Students whispered and stared. He was a man who turned heads wherever he went. He smiled when he saw me, that same confident smile I had once adored. Darling, he greeted smoothly. Shall we talk? I considered walking past him without a word. But something inside me wanted to confront him to see how far I could push him. Now that I wasn't his puppet daughter, so I stopped, arms crossed, and looked him in the eye. What is it, Adrian? He stepped closer, lowering his voice so only I could hear. Why are you being difficult? You know our families have planned this for years. Why embarrass everyone? I raised an eyebrow. Embarrass everyone? Or embarrass you? His smile faltered for a second. I'm trying to be patient, but don't push me. I tilted my head, feigning innocence. Patient? With what? Me refusing to throw away my life for you. His jaw tightened. I could see the cracks in his mask, the frustration building. He wasn't used to me defying him. In my last life, I had bent over backwards to please him. This time, I watched him squirm. Listen, he said, grabbing my arm, his grip firm. You will regret this attitude. I'm offering you everything, and you dare reject me. I pulled my arm free, my voice cold. You're offering me a cage, and I've already decided I'd rather fly. Then I turned and walked away, leaving him frozen in place as students stared in awe. My heart pounded wildly, but not from fear, from exhilaration, from freedom. Of course, my defiance only fueled the gossip. Be why the end of the week? Whispers spread like wildfire. Did you hear? She rejected Adrian's proposal. They say she's gone crazy. Who would turn down a man like him? Maybe she thinks she can do better. She'll regret it. Everywhere I went, eyes followed me. Some pitied, some mocked, some envious. But I walked with my head held high, because I knew the truth. They saw Adrian as a prize. I knew he was poison. One evening, as I studied alone in the library, Jenny appeared. Yes, her. The woman who would one day become his mistress. the one who had stood by his side at my anniversary. Back then, she was just another pretty face in the crowd, a sly smile hidden behind polite words. She sat across from me, her lips curling into a smirk. "So it's true," she said lightly, tapping her manicured nails against the table. "You refused him?" I didn't bother looking up from my book. "Yes." Her laugh was soft, mocking. "Smart of you. He was never yours to begin with." My grip tightened on the pen in my hand. In my past life, her words would have shattered me. I would have gone home and cried, tortured by insecurity. But not now. I finally looked up, meeting her smug gaze with calm eyes. "Keep him," I said simply. Her smirk faltered. "What, you heard me?" I leaned back in my chair, a small smile on my lips. "You can have him." "I don't want him." "I won't fight you. In fact, I hope you enjoy every single thing that comes with him." Confusion flickered across her face. She had expected anger, jealousy, maybe even tears. Not indifference. I returned to my book, ignoring her completely. After a long silence, she stood abruptly, her heels clicking as she stormed out. I chuckled softly to myself. "This time, Jenny, you won't steal anything from me, because I've already given it all up willingly." But if I was truly going to change my life, I knew I couldn't just reject Adrian and sit idly by. In my past life, I had sacrificed my own dreams for him. I had abandoned my career, my ambitions, believing that being a good wife meant being small, silent, obedient. And where had that led me? To humiliation, to betrayal, to ruin. Not this time. This time, I would focus on me. So I pulled out my old notebooks, the ones I had hidden away after marriage. They were filled with ideas, business plans, sketches, dreams I had once believed were impossible. I flipped through the pages, tears stinging my eyes. How foolish I had been to let them gather dust. I touched the cover and whispered, "Not anymore." The next morning, I walked into the Entrepreneurship Center at the university. Students bustled about, presenting ideas, pitching projects, scribbling notes on whiteboards. My heart raced as I approached the registration desk. "I'd like to sign up," I said firmly. The clerk raised an eyebrow. "For the startup competition?" "Yes." She handed me a form, and as I filled it out, I felt a spark ignite inside me. This was it. The first step. No more chains. No more cages. No more being the woman who waited quietly in the shadows while her husband shined. This time, I would shine for myself. That night, as I worked late on my project, I thought about Adrian and Jenny. In my past life, they had destroyed me. In this life, they would watch me rise. And I smiled to myself, whispering into the quiet room, "Break me once. Shame on you. But try again, and you'll see a different woman entirely." Adrian never liked losing. In my past life, I had seen flashes of his temper, hidden beneath that polished charm. He was a man who believed the world belonged to him, that people, especially women, were possessions to collect, to control, to parade around like trophies. When I rejected him, he didn't take it as my choice. He took it as a challenge, and Adrian always played to win. It started with the gifts, bouquets of roses delivered to my dorm every morning, boxes of expensive chocolates left on my desk, jewelry wrapped in velvet cases, shining temptations meant to dazzle and weaken my resolve. The first time, I laughed. The second time, I rolled my eyes. By the third, I simply handed them to classmates who squealed with delight. "Are you crazy?" my roommate gasped one evening, holding up the diamond bracelet he had sent. "This costs more than my entire tuition." And you're just giving it away. I shrugged, sipping my tea. What good is gold from a man who only wants to chain you? She stared at me like I had lost my mind. But to me, it made perfect sense. In my past life, those same gifts had made me glow with foolish pride. I had worn them like proof of his love. But now I saw them for what they were, shackles wrapped in glitter. Not this time. When gifts failed, Adrian switched to appearances. He started showing up everywhere I went. Outside my classes, at the CAFNI campus, even at the park where I jogged in the mornings, always with that same confident smile, always with words that dripped honey but stank of poison. Darling, he drawled one day, stepping out of his sleek car to block my path. You've made your point. You've had your fun. But let's stop this nonsense. Come back to me. Let's make it official. I stopped walking, tilted my head, and looked at him with a smile that wasn't a smile. Official? Adrian, you're not even my boyfriend. How can you talk about making things official? His smirk faltered for just a second before returning. Don't play coy. Our families already consider us promised to each other. Everyone expects it. Everyone, I repeated softly, except me. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. You're humiliating me. I laughed, a quiet, sharp laugh that made his eyes narrow. No, Adrian. I'm saving myself from humiliation. There's a difference. And then I walked past him, leaving him stunned in the middle of the sidewalk. But the true test came at a family dinner. My parents, still clinging to their hopes, had invited Adrian and his family once more. The atmosphere was tense the moment I entered the room, dressed in a simple navy dress, my expression calm and unreadable. Adrian rose to greet me with a dazzling smile, pulling out the chair beside him. Darling, sit here. I shook my head and sat across from him instead. The meal began, filled with polite conversation and veiled tension. My mother laughed too loudly at Adrian's jokes. My father nodded approvingly at his every word. They wanted me to soften, to yield, to give him the yes he demanded. But not this time. Halfway through dinner, Adrian lifted his glass, eyes fixed on me. To our future, he said confidently, loud enough for everyone to hear. All eyes turned to me, waiting for my response. In my past life, I would have blushed, nodded, smiled shyly, feeding into his narrative. But now, I set my fork down slowly, dabbed my lips with a napkin, and met his gaze head on. There is no future, Adrian. Not with you. The room fell silent. My mother choked on her wine. My father's face turned crimson. Adrian's mother gasped audibly. Adrian himself froze, his confident mark slipping for the briefest moment. Then he laughed, a brittle sound. You're joking again? I'm not. My voice was steady, cold. I don't want a relationship with you. Not now, not ever. Please stop wasting both of our time. His jaw tightened, his knuckles whitening around his glass. He wasn't used to hearing no, especially not in front of witnesses. You'll regret this, he hissed under his breath. I leaned forward slightly, my lips curling into the faintest smile. Funny. That's exactly what you'll be saying to me in a few years. His eyes darkened, rage simmering beneath the surface. The rest of dinner was suffocating, but I remained calm, eating each bite slowly as though nothing had happened. By the end, Adrian stormed out without a word, his parents trailing after him in shocked silence. My own family erupted the moment the door closed. What were you thinking? My father roared. You embarrassed us. My mother cried. I listened quietly, then spoke softly but firmly. I'd rather embarrass my family once than spend a lifetime being humiliated by him. They didn't understand. They wouldn't understand. But I no longer needed them to. That night, I sat by my window, the cool breeze brushing against my skin. In my past life, Adrian had owned me body, mind, and soul. I had lived for his approval, his scraps of affection, his fleeting attention, but not this time. This time, I had looked him in the eye and refused him. Publicly, unapologetically, and the satisfaction that filled my chest was sweeter than any gift he could have given me. The next morning, as I walked across campus, whispers followed me. She rejected him again, in front of both families. Is she insane? I ignored them all, my steps light, my heart free, because I knew something they didn't. I knew where this path had once led me. And I knew I had already changed the course. Adrian might still try to claw his way back. Jenny might still try to provoke me. The world might still whisper behind my back. But none of it mattered. Because for the first time in my life, I was not afraid. I was free. And this time, my cold refusal was only the beginning. When I returned home that night, the city outside was alive with neon lights and buzzing traffic. But inside my apartment, silence hung heavy like an unspoken truth. I sat on the couch, staring at the half-finished cup of coffee from that morning. My hands rested on my knees, trembling slightly, as if they carried the weight of choices I hadn't yet made. Ariana's confession echoed in my head. I was afraid you'd break me. I was afraid I'd ruin you. I could hear the vulnerability in her voice replaying again and again. She wasn't some perfect, untouchable figure anymore. She was real, human, flawed, and maybe that's why my heart wouldn't stop pulling toward her. But then came Maya. Sweet, dependable Maya, who had been my friend, my quiet supporter, my steady ground when the storms hit. That night she had looked at me with eyes shimmering like she had already lost me. And it broke me. I wanted to call her, to explain, to tell her that my world wasn't suddenly collapsing into Ariana's orbit again. But the truth was I didn't know if that was true. I didn't know what I felt. The next day, campus was buzzing louder than usual. Whispers followed me down the hallway. I could see people turning, smirking, gossiping behind their hands. When I finally caught a glimpse of the bulletin board, I froze. A photo. Me and Ariana on the rooftop last night. The faint neon glow behind us, the closeness of our bodies. The way her eyes looked at me, it was all captured in that single shot. Someone had spread it across campus, scrawled across the paper in red marker, from enemies to lovers. I felt the burn of humiliation creeping up my neck. This wasn't just about me anymore. This was about Ariana's reputation and Maya's feelings. I ripped the paper down, crumpling it in my fist. But it was too late. The whispers were louder than the truth. Later I found Maya sitting on the library steps, clutching her books like they were the only thing keeping her together. Her voice was soft when she spoke. So it's true, then? I opened my mouth to explain, but words stumbled out uselessly. Maya, it's not like that I didn't plan this. It just happened. Her smile was sad, fragile, the kind that hurt more than anger ever could. I knew. I think I always knew. Even when you sat with me, laughed with me, shared your stories. A part of you was always looking past me, toward her. The worst part. She wasn't wrong. That evening, Ariana cornered me outside the auditorium. Her expression was unreadable. So, the whole school thinks we're a couple now, she said lightly, but her eyes searched mine with unspoken weight. I sighed. This isn't a game, Ariana. People are getting hurt. Maya's getting hurt. Her voice dropped, soft and vulnerable again. And what about me? Do I matter in this equation, or am I just the villain in your story? That question pierced me in a way I wasn't ready for. Because maybe for the first time I was beginning to see Ariana not as the villain, not as the star, but as a person caught in her own tangled web, and me. I was standing in the middle of two worlds, both of which felt like they could break me. But life doesn't wait for you to sort out your heart. The college festival was approaching, a massive event where every department showcased their best work. The music club was expected to deliver something unforgettable. And guess who was assigned to lead the duet for the opening night? Me. And Ariana. As if the universe itself had decided to tie us together, no matter how hard we tried to untangle the strings. That night, lying in bed, I stared at the ceiling. I thought about Maya's tears, about Ariana's trembling voice, about the way music seemed to pull me into a storm I couldn't escape. And for the first time, I wondered, was this fate? Or was this just me, too afraid to choose, too afraid to let go? I wish I could say that after that night in the rain, everything suddenly became easy. That the broken pieces of my heart fell neatly back into place, and I walked forward without hesitation. But healing isn't linear. It's messy, unpredictable, and often comes with days where you feel like you're back at square one. After the rain-soaked evening with Arjun, I woke up with a warmth I hadn't felt in years. His words echoed in my mind. Love isn't just romance, Maya. Sometimes it's simply choosing to stay when everything else is falling apart. But the fear was still there, hiding beneath my ribs, whispering, what if he leaves too? What if this is just a dream? That morning, I stood before the mirror, my eyes tracing the faint scar along my collarbone, the reminder of the night Rohan walked away while I shattered. For so long, I saw only pain in that scar. But today, I tried something new. I touched it gently and whispered, this is not weakness. This is survival. It felt strange, almost silly, talking to myself. But maybe healing meant rewriting the script I had played on repeat for years. The first invitation a few days later, Arjun texted me. Arjun, coffee. No deadlines, no designs. Just two humans sitting across each other. I stared at the message for a long time. Coffee. A simple word. But to me, it felt loaded with meaning. Did I dare? My thumb hovered over the screen, trembling. Finally, I typed, me. Only if you promise not to order that disgusting, extra strong espresso again. His reply was instant. Arjun, deal. I'll even let you steal a sip of my latte. We met at a small CAF tucked into the corner of a quiet street. The kind of place that smelled of cinnamon and old books, with soft yellow lights that made you feel safe. When I walked in, Arjun was already there, sketchbook open, doodling absent-mindedly. His hair was messier than usual, and he looked up with that familiar half-smile that made my chest ache in ways I wasn't ready to admit. Maya, he said softly, as if my name itself was a song. I sat across from him, suddenly hyper-aware of how ordinary this moment seemed, and yet how extraordinary it felt. We talked about nothing, about everything. The kind of conversation that slips past your defenses without warning. He asked me about my favorite childhood memory. I told him about chasing fireflies in my grandmother's backyard. The way the night sky seemed alive with flickering lights, and how my little hands could never quite catch one, no matter how fast I ran. He listened, eyes shining, as if my memory was something precious. And then he told me about the time he built a kite with his father, only to watch it get stuck in a tree minutes later. We laughed, really laughed, and for a moment I forgot that my heart had ever been broken. But healing, as I said, is not a straight path, just as the warmth of laughter filled me. The door to the CAF opened and in walked someone I never wanted to see again. Rohan. My breath caught. My body stiffened, every muscle coiling like a spring. He hadn't changed much. Still tall, still polished, still carrying that same arrogance in his stride. But when his eyes landed on me, sitting across from Arjun, something flickered across his face, something I couldn't quite name. I froze. My mind screamed, not here. Not now. Do you want to leave? Arjun asked softly, leaning closer, his voice steady. The CAF buzzed around us, but in that moment, all I could hear was the pounding of my heart. I shook my head, though my hands trembled. No, I won't run anymore. And I meant it. For too long, I let Rowan's ghost control me. Today, I would not give him that power. Rohan walked to the counter, ordered something, and deliberately took a seat within view of us. My stomach twisted, but Arjun didn't even glance at him. He kept his eyes on me, grounding me, reminding me that I was here, not there. Tell me, he said suddenly, what's the one thing you've always wanted to do but never had the courage? I blinked, surprised. The question dragged me away from the storm brewing inside me. Sing, I admitted, almost whispering. I always wanted to sing on stage, but I never did. Too scared. His lips curved into a gentle smile. Then maybe one day we'll fix that. The way he said we made something deep inside me unclench. When Rohan finally left the CAF, I exhaled a shaky breath I hadn't realized I'd been holding. Arjun reached across the table, not touching, but close enough that I felt the steady calm of his presence. You're stronger than you think, he murmured, and for the first time, I started to believe him. That night, lying in bed, I replayed the day in my mind. The laughter, the fear, the strength I didn't know I had. And, slowly, gently, a truth began to whisper through the cracks of my heart. Maybe healing didn't mean forgetting the past. Maybe it meant learning to carry it without letting it define me. And maybe, just maybe, I wasn't walking this path alone anymore. I remember the days following that dinner with Ethan as some of the most confusing and emotionally draining of my life. It was as if I had been given a glimpse into a different future, one where I was seen, cherished and valued not as an afterthought, but as someone who mattered. And yet, the shadow of my current reality lingered. Adrian, my fiancé, was still in my life. He still occupied that space in my heart I had reserved years ago, though now it felt bruised, neglected and hollow. The next morning, I woke up to a string of unread messages from him. For the first time in weeks, he had actually texted me. Sorry about last night. I know I've been busy. Jenny needed me. She's going through a rough patch. You're strong, you understand. I'll make it up to you. My fingers trembled as I scrolled through his excuses. Each message felt like a dagger cloaked in silk. He had the audacity to call me understanding, as though my silence, my forced smiles, my swallowing of disappointment had become his ticket to treat me like second best. But something in me had shifted since Ethan entered the picture. His words from the dinner still echoed in my mind. Don't shrink yourself for someone who refuses to see your worth. That morning, instead of replying to Adrian with my usual, "It's okay, I understand," I simply left his messages unread. For once, I allowed him to feel the silence. Later that day, Ethan called. His voice was warm, steady, the kind that grounded me when my own world felt unstable. "Are you free today?" he asked. "I know you've been carrying a lot. I just thought, maybe you'd want a break. Come with me. No pressure, just let's breathe outside the city for a while." I hesitated. My instinct was to say no, to bury myself in work, to keep the distance that society and my engagement ring demanded. But then I thought, when was the last time I did something purely for myself? Yes, I heard myself say, I'd like that. We drove out of the city, the noise of honking cars and flashing billboards giving way to stretches of green fields and a wide, open sky. The air smelled fresher, lighter. I rolled the window down, letting the breeze tangle my hair. For the first time in months, I felt alive. Ethan glanced at me and smiled. "That's the look of someone who's been caged too long. You deserve this, Emma. Don't forget that." We stopped at a quiet lakeside. The water shimmered like glass, reflecting the fading hues of the sunset. Ethan laid out a blanket, unpacked sandwiches and lemonade he had brought, and we just sat there in silence. And it was in that silence I realized something silence with. Ethan didn't feel heavy or suffocating. It wasn't filled with unspoken resentment or unanswered questions like it was with Adrian. Instead, it was peaceful, like two souls simply existing side by side, not needing to perform or pretend. "Can I ask you something?" Ethan said after a long pause. I nodded. "Why him?" His voice was careful, not judgmental, but curious. "Why Adrian? You're brilliant, beautiful, kind. I see how much you give, but what does he give you?" The question pierced me. My throat tightened as tears welled in my eyes. I wanted to defend Adrian, to list the reasons I stayed, the memories that bound us, the dreams we once shared. But when I searched for words, there was only emptiness. Finally, I whispered, "I don't know anymore." Ethan reached over, gently brushing a tear from my cheek with his thumb. His touch was tender, grounding, not invasive. "You don't owe anyone your forever, Emma, especially not someone who doesn't fight to keep you." I looked into his eyes then, and for the briefest moment, the world fell away. The intensity there scared me, not because it was unwelcome, but because it was everything I had been craving, everything I had been deprived of. I wanted to lean into him. I wanted to close the gap and feel what it was like to be kissed by someone who actually saw me. But then, the weight of my reality came crashing back. I was still engaged. My loyalty, my fear, my hesitation, they shackled me like chains. I pulled back slightly, my voice trembling. "Ethan, I can't." "Not yet." He nodded, though I saw the flicker of disappointment in his eyes. "I know. I'm not asking you to. I'll wait. Just promise me you'll think about what you really deserve." Because, Emma, loving someone shouldn't feel like losing yourself. That night, as I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, Adrian's words and Ethan's words clashed in my mind. One told me to endure, to understand, to be patient. The other told me to choose myself, to break free, to seek love that healed instead of hurt. For the first time in years, I questioned, was my loyalty actually love or just fear of letting go? And deep down I knew. The cracks in my engagement weren't just cracks anymore. They were growing into fractures too wide to ignore. The question wasn't if it would break. The question was when. I should have known that happiness, when it comes, never lingers too long. It's fragile, like glass, beautiful, but easy to shatter. After that perfect week together, where laughter seemed endless and our small, quiet moments felt like eternity. Life decided to test us. It started with a call. One evening, while I was helping Mia prepare dinner cutting vegetables, while she hummed some silly pop song, her phone rang. She looked at the screen, her smile fading instantly, as if someone had drained the color from her face. It's my ex, she whispered. I froze. The knife in my hand felt heavier than steel. My first instinct was to tell her not to answer, to throw the phone away, to protect what we had. But then, in her eyes, I saw hesitation, not because she missed him, but because she feared something else. She answered, and from the few words she spoke, I realized something dreadful. He wasn't calling to rekindle old flames. He was calling to threaten her. Stop seeing him. His voice was loud enough that even I heard from across the room. Or I'll ruin you both. Don't test me, Mia. My chest tightened, anger burning through me. But Mia, she simply hung up and put her phone down, her hands trembling. I'm sorry you had to hear that, she whispered, her voice breaking. I reached out, holding her hands firmly. You don't have to be sorry. He doesn't control your life anymore. He won't control our life. But inside, I was torn. What could I do? That man wasn't just any ex, he was powerful. His family had connections. And me, I was just me. A man who wanted nothing more than to love a woman who deserved peace. Days after that, things changed. Mia became quieter, more careful. She still smiled, still laughed with me, but sometimes her eyes wandered like she was waiting for the world to collapse on us. Then, it happened. One evening, after a long day, I found her sitting outside my apartment building, clutching her bag, tears staining her face. Mia? What happened? I rushed to her. She looked at me, broken. He showed up at my office, in front of everyone. He told them lies, that I was still with him, that you were just some fling. He made it sound so believable that even my boss. She shook her head. I feel so humiliated. My heart ached. She didn't deserve this. I wanted to storm to that man, to punch him until he couldn't breathe. But I knew that would only fuel his power. He wanted me to lose control. Instead, I held Mia tightly, whispering, he can say whatever he wants. I know the truth. You know the truth. And anyone who matters will see it too. She sobbed into my chest, and in that moment, I silently vowed no matter how ugly things got, no matter what he tried to do, I would not let him destroy her spirit. But the twist? That same night, while Mia finally rested, her phone lit up with another message from him. I shouldn't have looked. I knew it wasn't my place. But curiosity and fear won over. The message read, if you don't leave him, I'll tell him the truth you've been hiding. My blood ran cold. What truth? And just like that, a new shadow hung between us, not only the threat of an ex who couldn't let go, but the realization that Mia was keeping something from me. For the first time, doubt crept into my heart. I lay awake that night, staring at the ceiling, wondering, what could she be hiding that was dangerous enough for him to use as leverage? And more importantly, why hadn't she trusted me with it? I thought the secret was finally out. I thought Elena and I could breathe freely, walk into the world hand in hand, and tell everyone that what we had wasn't a scandal, wasn't betrayal, it was simply love that had bloomed in unusual soil. But love is never that simple, is it? The morning after our rooftop confession, my phone buzzed with an anonymous message. Does Noah know you kissed his fiancée? Better come clean before someone else does. My stomach dropped, Elena had warned me about Noah's temper. He wasn't just heartbroken, he was humiliated. And humiliation often seeks revenge. At first, I wanted to ignore the text. I told myself it was just some idle gossip, someone who saw us by accident. But the truth was that the message wasn't a warning, it was a threat. That evening, Noah stormed into my small studio apartment without knocking. His jaw was tight, his hands balled in two fists, and his eyes burned with betrayal. "How long, Liam?" he spat, his voice trembling with barely contained rage. "How long have you been sneaking behind my back with her?" I froze. I could lie. I could say it was all a misunderstanding, that we were friends, nothing more. But the time for lies was long gone. "Not long," I said quietly. "But it's real. And I never meant for it to happen this way." The silence that followed was suffocating. Noah's laugh was sharp, bitter. "You never meant for it to happen. You kissed my fiancée, Liam, the woman I was going to marry. And you're supposed to be my friend." He shoved me against the wall, and for a moment, I thought he'd hit me. But instead, he stepped back, his chest heaving. "You've ruined everything," he whispered, and then he was gone, slamming the door so hard the frame shook. 4 days, Elena and I didn't hear from him. He stopped answering her calls, blocked me on every platform, and disappeared from the office. Then came the real blow. At work, whispers followed me. Eyes lingered longer than they should have. Someone had leaked the story, screenshots of text exchanges, blurry photos of Elena and me on the rooftop. The headline on one gossip blog read, "Engaged architect falls for struggling artist, office scandal exposed." I wanted to crawl into a hole and disappear. Elena was devastated. Her parents called, demanding explanations. Her company threatened to suspend her. My art exhibit suddenly didn't matter anymore. People came not to see my work, but to confirm if I was that guy who broke an engagement. We became villains in a story we hadn't even written. One night, as rain pounded the city, Elena and I sat in my apartment, silence heavy between us. She traced circles on her coffee mug, her eyes glistening. "Maybe we should end this," she whispered. "Maybe we're hurting too many people." Her words cut deeper than any headline. "Do you really believe that?" I asked, my voice breaking. She looked at me, and in her eyes, I saw the same storm I carried inside. Fear, guilt, love, all tangled together. "I don't know," she admitted. "I just know I've never felt this alive, this seen, this loved. But the world hates us, Liam. My parents hate me right now. Noah hates us both. And I don't know if I'm strong enough to fight everyone." I reached across the table and took her hand. "We don't have to fight everyone," I said softly. "Just fight for us." But fate wasn't done testing us. The next morning, I woke to a voicemail from Noah. His voice was slurred, angry, and filled with something darker than rage. "If I can't have her, Liam, then no one can. Remember that." I replayed that message 3 times, each repetition twisting my gut tighter. This wasn't just heartbreak anymore. This was danger. Elena and I had chosen each other. But now the question wasn't just whether love was worth the cost, it was whether love could survive the storm Noah was about to unleash. And in that moment, I realized this story wasn't heading toward a simple happy ending. No, it was barreling toward a collision, one that might break us for good. The world seemed to tilt on its axis the moment we realized Noah wasn't bluffing. It started small emails sent to Elena's office questioning her integrity. Anonymous. calls to her parents painting me as a manipulative villain, subtle sabotages at my art studio. At first, I thought it was just rumor, just gossip fueled by jealousy. But then came the messages that made my blood run cold. You think you can take her from me? Think again. Watch everything you love burn. Elena and I tried to stay calm, tried to shield ourselves. We didn't let anyone see our fear. But each night, as I sat by the window of my studio, city lights reflecting off the rain-soaked streets, I could feel the weight of his threats pressing down on us. We couldn't run. We couldn't hide. And yet, we had no choice but to fight together. The breaking point came one evening at the charity gala, an event where both Elena's company and my art studio were invited. It was supposed to be a celebration, a night of elegance and light. Instead, it became the stage for Noah's ultimate plan. I had just finished giving a speech about my upcoming art exhibit when the lights flickered. A hush fell over the crowd, murmurs growing as the large projector screen behind me flickered to life. And there he was, Noah, smiling, calm, in full view of every attendee. A video began to play. Footage of Elena and me taken without our knowledge, moments meant to be private. Our laughter, our closeness, our whispered confessions on rooftops. The screen amplified every intimate detail. Gasps echoed around the room. Phones flashed as people recorded, tweeted, whispered. I could feel Elena's hand trembling in mine, her grip tight as though it were the only thing keeping her steady. This is insane, I whispered fiercely. Noah's voice, calm and deliberate, came through the speakers. I warned you. You thought you could take her, control her, love her without consequences. Now, everyone knows the truth. You can't hide from me or from the world. I clenched my fists. He wasn't just trying to humiliate us, he was trying to isolate us, to break our bond before it could grow stronger. In the chaos, I made a decision. I couldn't let fear dictate our lives anymore. If Noah wanted a war, he'd get one, but not the one he expected. I turned to Elena, my voice steady, despite the storm in my chest. Follow me. We slipped through the crowd, using back corridors I knew from past gallery events. Every step felt like a heartbeat in a symphony of adrenaline. Once we reached a quiet stairwell, I pulled Elena close. No matter what he does, we face it together, I said. Her eyes shimmered with unshed tears. Together, she echoed. The twist, the turning point, came moments later. Noah had underestimated us. While he relied on fear, we relied on trust in each other and in the strength of what we shared. Using the contacts I'd quietly built in the art world and the corporate networks Elena navigated daily, we managed to intercept his plans before they could spiral further. Anonymous calls traced, leaks contained, video evidence removed before reaching public platforms. But the encounter wasn't without cost. In the scuffle to stop his hired accomplices, Elena twisted her ankle badly, limping as we barely escaped the gala. The adrenaline and relief were short-lived. Fear for her safety replaced celebration, and every glance around made us feel the weight of Noah's reach. That night, as Elena rested, her ankle elevated and wrapped, I sat beside her on the couch. Exhausted, drenched in sweat and tension. You saved us, she whispered, her voice weak but unwavering. I shook my head. We saved us. Together. The days after the gala were tense, filled with unspoken anxiety. Noah didn't stop. He couldn't. His presence lingered like a shadow we couldn't outrun. Every message, every glance over our shoulders, every mysterious stranger passing by, reminded us that the storm wasn't over. But instead of succumbing to fear, we made a choice. We wouldn't hide. we would face him together. It started with a meeting we arranged at a quiet, neutral location, a small park outside the city. Away from cameras, away from the chaos, Noah was there before us, pacing with a controlled intensity that made my blood boil. He didn't look angry. He looked like a man convinced of his own righteousness. "You shouldn't have come," he said, voice low but firm. "Nor should you have interfered in our lives," I replied, stepping forward, Elena by my side. "This ends today." He smiled, cold, calculated, almost amused. "Ends? No, Liam. This is just the beginning. You think love can survive lies, betrayal, and consequences? You're a knave." Elena grabbed my hand, a silent anchor in the storm. I squeezed hers back, and in that simple touch, I found the courage to face him fully. Noah didn't wait. He lunged, not physically, but with words designed to pierce, to destabilize. "You think she'll stay with you when she knows the truth? She's been hiding her past from you, Liam. Secret she never told you." My heart thumped. My mind raced. What truth? What could Elena be hiding that he's using to threaten us now? Elena shook her head, stepping forward with fierce determination. "He's lying. There are no secrets. You're using fear because you're too weak to accept that I chose my own happiness." Noah froze, his eyes narrowing. For a brief moment, the arrogance faltered. I don't care," he spat. "She'll regret it." "Not this time," I said, voice steady. "Because this time, we fight together. Not against each other, not against the world, together." And then, the twist. Noah made a move I didn't expect. He reached into his pocket, but it wasn't a weapon. It was a folder of documents, old emails, photos, and messages, evidence of his manipulation over the years. The proof of his obsession, his lies, his attempts to control everyone around him. "You think you can just expose me?" he hissed. "Do you really think anyone will believe you?" But I was ready. Elena and I had prepared. We had compiled everything he had tried to hide. Recordings of his threats, messages from witnesses, proof of his sabotage attempts. With one swift motion, I placed our evidence on the ground between us. "We don't need anyone to believe us, Noah. We have the truth." The wind shifted. The tension broke. Noah stared at the document, his face contorting in disbelief, frustration, and for a fleeting moment fear. Elena stepped forward, voice unwavering. "We won't be victims. We won't be silenced. And you won't control our lives anymore." Noah's shoulders slumped slightly, the fight leaving him not completely defeated. He would always be dangerous, but he realized we weren't afraid anymore. We weren't backing down. After the confrontation, the storm slowly began to pass. Elena and I returned home, exhausted but stronger than ever. The weight of fear lifted just enough to let us breathe again. For the first time, we could plan a future without constantly looking over our shoulders. That night, as we lay side by side, I realized that love isn't just about the good moments. It's about surviving the bad, standing tall when everything is trying to push you down, and choosing each other every single day. I brushed a strand of hair from Elena's face, feeling the warmth of her skin. "We made it," she whispered, a soft smile breaking through. "Yes," I said. "And we'll keep making it, no matter what comes next." And in that moment, I understood fully. Love isn't perfect. Love isn't easy. But when it's real, it's unstoppable. The weeks that followed felt surreal, like we had stepped out of a nightmare into a world we could finally breathe in. Noah's threats had subsided, his power to disrupt our lives diminished. The storm had passed, leaving behind a clarity we had never known. Elena and I walked hand in hand through the park where we first confronted him. The autumn leaves crunched beneath our feet, and for the first time in months, our laughter wasn't tinged with fear. "Do you ever think about everything that happened?" she asked, leaning her head on my shoulder. "All the time," I admitted. "But now, it doesn't scare me anymore. It's proof of how far we've come." She smiled, eyes glimmering in the soft sunlight. "I never knew love could feel like this. Safe, strong, free." I kissed the top of her head gently. "That's because we finally chose it. Not the easy way, not the convenient way, but the right way." Together, our lives slowly returned to normal. My art exhibit went on as planned, now infused with a new energy, raw, emotional and honest. People weren't just seeing the work. They were feeling it, connecting with the story embedded in every brushstroke, every color. Elena's career flourished as well. She returned to her company with newfound confidence, no longer shadowed by fear or manipulation. Her parents, once skeptical, finally saw the strength, resilience, and joy in their daughter's choices, and us. We built a life together, brick by brick, moment by moment. We learned to navigate love not as a fantasy, but as a living, breathing force, one that required trust, honesty, and courage. It was ironic how life came full circle. Our wedding day arrived unexpectedly. It rained, the same way it had on the night we first acknowledged our feelings. But this time, the rain didn't feel cold or frightening. It felt cleansing, like the universe washing away the pain and fear that had once haunted us. Friends and family gathered under umbrellas, smiles beaming through the drops. Noah didn't attend, but we didn't need him to acknowledge our happiness. His absence was irrelevant. Our joy was unshakable. As Elena walked down the aisle, I couldn't stop smiling. Her dress shimmered in the rain, and the determination in her eyes reflected the journey we had endured, the struggles, the heartbreak, the courage. When she reached me, I took her hands in mine. The rain fell harder, drenching us, but it didn't matter. We were soaked in love, in truth, in the freedom we had fought for. "I choose you," I whispered. "And I choose you," she replied, voice steady, heart unwavering. We kissed, sealing not just a wedding vow, but a lifetime promise, a pledge that no storm, no obstacle, no shadow could ever break the bond we had forged. Years later, we would look back on those days, the betrayal, the fear, the uncertainty, as chapters that shaped us, but didn't define us. Our love had survived the tests of time, manipulation, and circumstance. Elena and I knew the truth. Love isn't about perfection. It's about resilience. It's about fighting for each other, believing in each other, and choosing each other every single day. And as we walked hand in hand through a sun-drenched park, surrounded by laughter, life, and new beginnings, I knew this was only the start of our forever.